Supporters of Julian Assange staged protests outside a London court ahead of his two-day appeal hearing, which begins Wednesday. United States prosecutors appealed a January district court ruling that Assange should not be extradited because of concerns he would commit suicide in a maximum security US prison. That premise will be challenged by prosecutors, says lawyer Nick Vamos, a former head of extradition at Britain's Crown Prosecution Service.
What the US government have now done is come forward with a specific assurance about exactly how, where and in what condition he will be detained. So provided his medical condition and his risk of suicide hasn't changed, then you would assume that the US government have met the test that the district judge in the first judgment set them.
Other developments since the January ruling could affect the case. A former Wikileaks insider turned FBI informer has said he fabricated evidence used by the prosecution. Meanwhile, Yahoo News last month published a story alleging that the CIA plotted to kidnap or even kill Assange in 2017. Yahoo says the story was based on interviews with 30 former US intelligence and national security officials.
It will be argued, well, if the CIA were willing to assassinate him, that's sort of one arm of the US government, then really you can't trust the other arm of the US government, the Department of Justice, to act fairly and to prosecute him in accordance with human rights standards and what we would consider to be a fair trial.
The CIA and US lawyers leading the extradition appeal have yet to comment on the Yahoo News story. Former CIA Director and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the Megyn Kelly podcast that all actions taken were consistent with US law. In 2010 and 2011, Assange oversaw the publication by Wikileaks of tens of thousands of diplomatic cables and military reports relating to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Assange says the leak exposed abuses by the US military, a main reason why supporters say the issue of press freedom is at stake.
And there is the huge issue of global media freedom and the way that this case could set a terrible precedent for any journalist, any publisher trying to expose the misdeeds and wrongdoing of government so that government can be held accountable.
Assange is being held at a London prison as he is considered a flight risk. He faces 18 US federal charges relating to allegations of hacking, theft of classified material, and the disclosure of the identities of US informants, which prosecutors say put their lives at risk. A verdict on the extradition appeal will likely take several weeks. Both sides can appeal the decision to Britain's Supreme Court, which could take several years. However, Supreme Court judges may rule against considering the case. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.